Now, one of West Africa's leading private security firms, Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, has published its monthly Nigeria security report for June 2025. According to the report, the number of security incidents in Nigeria in June fell by just over 48% compared to the previous month of May. The number of deaths recorded in the same period also fell by more than 14%, as did the number of abductions, which fell by nearly 75% in June compared to the previous month of May. Despite these reductions, the report says that civilian deaths remained high, accounting for more than 72% of the total number of deaths in June. It said herder-farmer conflicts were a significant cause of fatalities in the north-central region, while the northwest experienced the highest number of abductions, accounting for more than 72% of all kidnappings in the country. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line by the security analyst and head of Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, Kabir Adamu. Good to see you, Kabir. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. So just summarize the key points of this report for us.
Thank you, Charles. The major point is depiction of the security situation in Nigeria. Clearly, when we did a month-to-month analysis, it was very clear that there was a minimal reduction, about 14% reduction in the number of deaths in the country. But then, given the fact that it's still above 1,111 deaths, that's still concerning. And then, of course, because it's June, we also did a second quarter, which is April to June 2024, and then we also did a kind of a half-year review to see where we are, mid-year. And in both instances, the revelation was quite, concerning. For the half year, what we saw was, in terms of fatalities, 6,800 persons dying, which, when we compared it with the second half of 2024, it was a 13.67% increase in terms of the number of persons. And that means if this current rate continues, more than 12,000 people will be killed in Nigeria within 2025. Now, for abduction, it was 5,402 persons. And then when we compared it to the second half of 2024, it was a reduction of 2.4%. Again, if this rate continues, it means more than 10,000 people will be abducted in Nigeria in 2025. That would probably make it the year with the worst figure for abduction in the country. And this is the importance of keeping such record. It gives an indication of whether the security measures that are being implemented are effective or not. The same thing for quarter 2, 2024. It was the variances were not very different from what we saw in half year. So clearly, the Nigerian security forces would need to do more if they are going to, at the end of the year, look back and say we were successful in our the measures that we are implementing to manage insecurity in Nigeria.
Well, thank you for that summary. So essentially, it can't be said, or it can be said, that this is good news for the Tinubu administration, certainly for that specific month of June, or is it too early to say?
No, definitely. Specifically, if you pick the figure for abduction, where we've seen a 74.89% in the month-to-month variation. Now, whatever the security forces did to cause this 74% reduction in the month-to-month variation in abduction, it is commendable and it must be continued. When we looked deeper, the major factor that led to this reduction is the ongoing security forces operation, military operation, police, and the several other security forces. Specifically, we've seen them targeting bandit leaders, terrorist commanders, and the supply chain of these groups, these violent actors. So it appears that this has reduced the capacity of these actors to abduct and hold their abductors. What it meant is that we are seeing more fatalities, so more rapes, They go into villages instead of what they would do in the past to abduct. Now they probably just kill. So clearly, on the one hand, there's an improvement, but then that improvement needs to also be translated into reducing the number of deaths. So yes, it is commendable from a month-to-month point of view, but whether it's going to be sustainable, unfortunately, that is what only time would tell. Sadly, in the past, we've seen instances like this where there will be a reduction, but because the measures are not sustainable, you see in the next month or next 2 months an increase. So we're hoping that the Nigerian security forces are paying attention to this. They've taken note of the fact that there is a reduction and that it is because of this increase in security tempo, and that, of course, the necessary funding, the necessary backing that would allow the security forces to maintain this tempo, and more importantly, Charles, to reduce the capacity of the threat element to regenerate. Like we always say, if the threat elements are able to generate funding, if they're able to recruit new members and get new weapons, as well as if they're able to move from point A to point B, then the possibility of them regenerating and being a resurgence is extremely high. And so this, I think, is what the security forces should pay attention to, so that we don't see a resurgence, as it were.
Well, at the risk of making you repeat yourself, Kabir, your analysis, I mean, I skimmed through it, really good report. But as you mentioned during this chat with you, you're still concerned about the picture that is emerging as a result of your report. In that regard, what would be the recommendations that you would make to the Nigerian government?
In our report, we usually conclude the report with recommendations, and it's about improved coordination. Nigeria has probably one of the most, in terms of numbers of security forces in existence. In the minimum, you count 29, but you can even extend that to about 35, 36. So there must be coordination, enhanced coordination between the various security forces. Border protection is an example. The role of the Nigerian Customs and the role of the Nigerian Immigration Service is absolutely important. And at the moment, there is a lot of room for improvement. The emphasis on the military to do virtually everything within security has to change. The other security forces too would need to play their role. Number two is to close the gap between what the federal government and the state government, the subnationals are doing. At the moment, there is no framework for a lot of the security challenges that Nigeria has. A good example is banditry. There is no national, federal framework, as it were, for addressing the challenge of banditry. Each state is left to handle the situation as it deems fit. Some states are negotiating with the bandits. Others are saying, no, we're not going to negotiate with them. So that unity of purpose, of function is required, and a framework would definitely support that. Number three is to enhance local government capacity. The discussions around the autonomy of the local government is long overdue. In spite of the fact that there is a court ruling on that, we haven't seen much traction in that regard. And then, of course, number four is to increase the local populace acceptance of the security measures, so that they take ownership, they provide the necessary intelligence to the security forces. If they take ownership, then they would support what the security forces are doing. Right now, there is very little support from the local population. And then, of course, finally, is to enhance technology within the security apparatus. This technology ecospace at the moment is extremely low. And the best way to do that is to enhance the involvement of private sector participation within the security apparatus. The government can't do it alone. There is a lot of private sector expertise and capacity, and so there must be the pathway to allow that private sector come in to support the government in that regard.
Well, thank you very much indeed for taking us through that rather comprehensive report. And congratulations on putting it out. Kabir Adamu is the security analyst and head of Beacon Security and Intelligence Limited, and he was talking to me on the line from here in Abuja.